Hello everyone, my name is Kenton Kivestu. I'm an ex-BCG consultant, an ex-Googler, and the founder of Rocketblocks, an online platform that helps candidates prepare for interviews. In today's Rocketblocks Primer, we're going to talk about a topic that I find fascinating, which is what is the future of the management consulting industry. Now, if you're interviewing for management consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, or Bain, this is obviously relevant to you, and even if you're just interested in the industry itself. And one of the reasons I think it's really helpful to talk about what is the future is it's really nice to understand kind of the trajectory of an industry. I think it's helpful to kind of put it into context where they are today. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the history of the management consulting industry and some of the origins. And then I'm going to spend time talking about two of the key drivers that I think are really going to shape what happens in the future. Now, one final disclaimer before we get started. This is obviously one man's opinion. I spent a lot of time thinking about this industry and where it's going and where it's been, but again, it's just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so let's start by talking about the history of the management consulting industry and paint some context. And to begin with, let's talk about some reference points about when some of the firms we all talk about were founded. McKinsey & Co. was founded in 1926, BCG was founded 37 years later in 1963, and Bain was founded by Bill Bain, who left BCG in 1973 and started Bain & Company. So you have all of these companies popping up, and when you see kind of patterns like this, it's interesting to think about, well, why are these companies popping up? What market demand are they meeting? And in this case, really what they're offering is strategic insight and strategic advisory services to businesses, to their clients and companies that they're working with. And you might think, well, why is that so unique? Couldn't those companies just go hire a business school student? Why weren't they doing that? And at the time, if you think back, in 1926, Stanford Business School was only founded in 1925. So they've only been around for a year at the time that McKinsey was founded. HBS was founded earlier, but they were only founded in 1908. So they're basically a teenager at the time McKinsey is founded. And the schools, these business schools, are very different entities than they are today. Today, HBS, Wharton, they have about 1,100 students per class. And that's just for the 2-year full-time programs. They've also got executive education programs. They've got online programs. They've got part-time programs, evening, weekend programs. So they've scaled a lot. It's very different. So back then, when these firms are getting started, a unique value proposition that they're offering of a formal kind of codified way about thinking about business strategy and how they can help their clients is really unique. And the consulting firms take that and they run with it. So they're all started here in the US mostly, but they take this methodology, they take that unique value proposition, and they expand regionally. So all of these firms operate across the globe. I think McKinsey and BCG both have around 100 offices apiece. Bain probably has about 60 offices now, and they're on all the major continents. In addition, as the companies that they're working with have scaled over the last 150 years, the services, the strategic advisory services that they're offering, that they started offering only kind of to the C-suite, the CEO, the COO, et cetera, they've started scaling down the organization as well because there's strategic issues that the VPs are wrestling with, the directors are wrestling with, et cetera. And so now they've kind of expanded regionally, and they're also expanding down into the organizations as well. Now, over time, over the last 50 years especially, as these companies have done really well, this formula is working for them. They've grown their revenues, they've grown their employee bases, and business schools in tandem have been growing as well. So you went from 100 years ago having a real dearth of people that were trained to think about a business strategically to today probably 2 to 3 orders of magnitude more people that are trained in this capacity. And in particular, some thousands of people that have been trained by the firms themselves that are now in-house at various companies around the world. So what looked like a really unique value proposition 50 years ago and certainly 100 years ago has become relatively less unique over time. Now, it's not a bad thing. There's still a lot of clients that are going to need that expertise and come to the consulting firms for it. But if you are one of these consulting firms and you're looking forward to the next 20 years, next 30 years, next 50 years, and where do you go? You want to make sure that you really have kind of a unique value proposition that is going to keep you relevant as the world continues to change and as some of the knowledge that you once kind of exclusively held has become more widely available. And so, what we're going to talk about is two of the key initiatives that I think these consulting firms are starting to pursue and are going to lean in heavily to over the next decades to really kind of set themselves apart. And I think that will help kind of define the future of this industry. So, let's jump into those. Okay, so let's talk about the first initiative, which is leaning into implementation work. Now, if you rewind 15, 20 years and look at McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, what you'll see is that those companies really had no interest in actually doing any sort of implementation work. Their approach at that time was really, look, we'll come into your business, we'll analyze what's going on, we'll make a series of recommendations, and then the onus is on you to actually go and implement and execute on those recommendations. But as we saw in the past, the unique value proposition of having good strategic insight and a formalized way of thinking about the different problems facing businesses, it's a little less unique than it used to be in the past. And so these companies, these firms are figuring out, how do we evolve? How do we make sure that our offering is really compelling and unique as well? And so from a firm standpoint, if you think about someone like McKinsey coming in and saying, hey, we see that you're having this type of problem, we can do a 12-week strategy engagement. And hey, by the way, once we've made recommendations at the end of those 12 weeks, we can do a 6-month or year-long implementation case as well. We can bring in a team that's going to help you actually implement those changes. Now, from McKinsey's standpoint or BCG's standpoint, that makes a lot of sense because they get to deepen their relationship with the client, and they also dramatically extend the length of that case. The fees might be a little different, but they get to earn a fee on a 12-week strategy case, plus make another kind of year or 6 months worth of revenue from the implementation case as well. Now, from the client side, it's also interesting because the client now knows, okay, if McKinsey comes and makes these recommendations, and then they're also going to be on the hook to help us implement them, we know that they've really got to believe in the recommendations as well, because they have more skin in the game. They've got to be practical. They've got to know that they can actually implement them. And so it helps align incentives from that standpoint as well. So you have this situation where the consulting firms historically expanded regionally, as we talked about. Then they expanded kind of down the organization from the C-suite on down to VPs and directors. And now they're looking to deepen the engagement. They're looking for that Z-axis to actually kind of extend the length of the engagements with these companies. And it makes a lot of sense. And again, it helps them strengthen that unique value proposition. They're not just saying, hey, we can help you think through strategy and what the problem is here, but hey, we'll help you think through the strategy and we'll help you implement the right solution and get it done correctly and get it done quickly so that you can get on with your business and make the changes that you need to. And McKinsey and BCG in particular are really leaning into this already. They're doing it across all the traditional kind of industries and functions that they work on. So, aerospace or retail or technology, and across operations, pricing, etc. So they'll help you actually implement the changes they're recommending. Now, what's really exciting about this is now that they've opened up the aperture to look at a little more besides just strategy work, is I think it's also going to lead them to some new frontiers and new types of work that they weren't doing in the past. And that's the second key initiative that I want to talk about. So let's jump into that now. Okay, the second initiative I want to focus on is establishing new areas of excellence. And this is a huge priority for all of the leading companies like McKinsey and BCG, et cetera. And you can see it, it's evident in their offerings and what they're marketing as well. So there's a bunch of different stuff that they are trying to establish expertise in that is rare and valued and will help them kind of burnish their own unique value propositions. And I encourage you to sign up for the newsletters that McKinsey, BCG, et cetera have, because they send out a lot of this research on a weekly basis. But two areas I want to highlight here are, the first is advanced analytics. Companies today are awash in data, and a lot of them don't have the expertise and the talent to cull through that data and to find insights and figure out how to use it to actually make their business more valuable. And both BCG and McKinsey are kind of tackling this head on. BCG has created an entire unit called BCG Gamma, which is an advanced analytics and data science unit to help companies sort through those type of problems and challenges. And McKinsey has a group called McKinsey Analytics. So both of them are investing heavily to establish areas of expertise there that are things that companies are struggling with, and they see it as an opportunity to really add value and again make their services unique beyond what they used to have. The second area is in digital transformation. Again, there are a lot of companies around that have really good businesses that they built up over decades and sometimes centuries, but they were born before the digital age. They're not software first companies, they're not technology enabled, and they really need to kind of evolve their businesses to make sure that they can stay competitive for the next 50 or 100 years. And both, again, BCG and McKinsey are leading into this heavily. They've created groups like McKinsey Digital. On the BCG side, it's called BCG Digital Ventures. We've actually got videos on both of those, so I'll put the links down in the comments below. But the idea here is that they are trying to establish new areas of expertise where they can not only, again, provide strategy and recommendations, but they can actually do implementation. So this is really interesting. There's new areas of expertise that they are finding that are rare and valuable, but they are also building them in a way where the nature of those new areas of expertise is implementation focused. So it's kind of the melding of these two initiatives that we're talking about, new areas and implementation focused. And again, if you put this all together, what these companies are trying to do is they're really trying to paint this new kind of soup to nuts unique value proposition, which is like, look, we can come in, we can help you figure out the right strategy, we can help you implement it, regardless of whether it's across traditional kind of business functions like pricing, marketing, operations, or it involves new rare skill sets like advanced analytics, data science, digital transformation, building, launching, shipping, software, all that stuff. So that's really what these firms are trying to do. And time will tell if it's going to work out, but it's definitely going to be exciting to watch that transformation happen. One final thought I want to leave you with. If you've been watching this video and the conclusion you've reached is, oh wow, the pure play quintessential strategy firm is completely going away, and what kind of like a sad outcome. I think that's one way to look at it, but a different and maybe a more optimistic way to look at it is the strategy firms themselves have turned an eye inward and looked at their own internal strategies and found that if they want to continue to kind of grow their business and prosper in the future, they're going to need to change how they operate and the services they provide and the value proposition, which is sort of a beautiful outcome in and of itself. And so it'll be exciting to see how this pans out and what exactly the industry holds in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching. We have a ton of great videos coming out on a weekly basis on the Rocket Blocks channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet already, please do so below. There's a big red button. That means you'll get notifications as soon as any of our videos come out in the future. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.